Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, February 3rd. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Today is San Diego County Sheriff Bill Gore's last day on the job. It comes the same day California's acting state auditor released a damning new report on how the sheriff's department mishandled deaths in county jails. We'll have more on that, but first, KPBS's Amita Sharma looks at the ups and downs of Gore's tenure.
I, William Gore,
do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear.
Bill Gore took office in early 2011 after serving as interim sheriff for 18 months. It was a rough and painful time. The swine flu hit county jails, and two teenage girls, Amber Dubois and Chelsea King, were murdered within 13 months of each other.
I don't think the men and women of the San Diego Sheriff's Department could have performed any better than they did during this last 18 months.
Before joining the Sheriff's Department, Gore spent 30 years working for the FBI. He was special agent in charge for the San Diego office on 9/11. Some say that job taught him the importance of collaboration.
So we're all working together and not in silos. He had a great impact on that, and he did that very, very well. He had the respect of every police chief, and certainly the respect of the DA's office.
San Diego County District Attorney Summer Steffen lauds Gore for co-creating the San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force and forming special units for sex crimes and cold cases. She says she and Gore were instrumental in pushing for special mental health crisis stabilization units.
He deserves credit for a lot of positive and a lot of why this area is looked at as a really great symbol for professional policing. But I think he would own all of those positives and, would also take responsibility for the things that are negative.
Many say the negatives outnumbered the positives during Gore's tenure. During his first year in office, the Sheriff's Department faced intense scrutiny for how it handled the case of Rebecca Zahau. In July of 2011, Zahau was found hanging in a Coronado mansion. And though she had been bound and gagged, Sheriff's Department investigators concluded she had died by suicide. Zahau's family believed she was murdered by her boyfriend's brother, Adam Shacknai. A civil jury agreed and found Shacknai liable for Zahau's death. In the years that followed, Gore continued to face accusations that he had rushed to judgment. He would not be interviewed for this story, but in 2018, he told a reporter that the suicide ruling followed a careful investigation.
We looked at this to start off with as a possible murder case. We didn't start off saying, well, this is suicide, and then gather information and facts to prove that it was a suicide.
In 2017, Gore faced the public's ire for the conduct of his deputies. More than a dozen local women accused Deputy Richard Fisher of sexual assault and misconduct.
He just scared me so bad that I just keep my doors locked all the time now. I would never let an officer in my house again.
Many of the women blamed Gore for not firing Fisher quickly enough. Gore disagreed.
In my mind, it was more important to do it right instead of doing it fast.
Later that year, Gore again came under fire for failing to discipline Deputy Christopher Villanueva, who shot and killed Jonathan Coronel while trying to serve a search warrant. It was Villanueva's second fatal shooting in 10 months.
These gentlemen were unarmed. They may have been gang affiliated, but that was splashed all over the news to defame and re-traumatize the family and criminalize the individual.
Yusuf Miller is with the Racial Justice Coalition. He described Gore as a skilled politician.
I think his PR is excellent. I mean, his department and himself, they can can neutralize and deflect the complaints of the community. And I must say, they did that very well.
Some complaints were backed up by data. A 2021 study by the Center for Policing Equity found that San Diego Sheriff's deputies were 4 times as likely to use force against black people than whites. Black pedestrians were also stopped 3.5 times more frequently. Deaths in sheriff-operated county jails have also dogged Gore. A 2019 investigation by the San Diego Union Tribune showed the department had the highest death rate of California's largest counties. Gore told KPBS he disagreed with the methodology used by the paper. Gore chose to retire earlier than expected to care for his ailing wife, Natalie. He called her his staunchest supporter at his last swearing in.
You're my rock. I can't thank you enough. I love you. Thanks for being here.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
Today, California's acting state auditor released a scathing report concluding that the San Diego County Sheriff's Department failed to report and respond to deaths of people in its custody. The report found that between 2006 and 2020, 185 people died in county jails, and that tally is one of the highest in the state. The state's review revealed serious problems with how the department provides medical and mental health care, as well as how it does visual safety and well-being checks. In a statement, the Sheriff's Department said it will consider every recommendation by the state auditor and carry out appropriate changes. During the pandemic, we haven't just been battling a virus. Gun violence has risen too. More than 2/3 of the country's 40 most populous cities saw more homicides last year than in 2020. Today, President Joe Biden traveled to New York to lay out a comprehensive strategy to combat gun violence. It includes money that cities and states can use to put more officers on the streets while investing in community violence prevention and intervention programs.
The answer is not to defund the police. It's to give you the tools, the training, the funding to be partners, to be protectors, and community needs you.
The president also announced that the Justice Department will do more to fight gun trafficking across state lines and city boundaries. And he said his administration is stepping up the fight against ghost guns, firearms that can be built using separate parts. A bill to ban the sale of ghost guns at the Del Mar Fairgrounds is one step closer to becoming a state law. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado spoke with the author of the bill as well as gun rights advocates.
Assembly Bill 311 would make it illegal to sell ghost gun kits and parts at the Del Mar Fairgrounds.
We've heard from law enforcement that, just in a couple of years, as much as 1/3 of those guns illegally held and recovered by law enforcement locally are ghost guns.
Assembly member Chris Ward wrote the bill that's already been approved by the state assembly. Ghost gun parts don't have serial numbers, are untraceable, and are used to make or assemble guns. They are not registered, and buying them does not require a background check.
And the potential that they would be afforded to be sold at the Del Mar Fairgrounds or state lands like the Del Mar Fairgrounds, that's unacceptable.
Ward says initially the bill banned the sale of these parts on all state lands, but it became clear it would be too costly and tough to enforce. Instead of scrapping it altogether, he amended it. Ward notes the city and county of San Diego have passed their own ghost gun laws.
But that would leave a donut hole with the state, with the Del Mar Fairgrounds, because those are state lands.
This all feels very much like political theater by people that have already been kind of proven to be anti-gun zealots.
Michael Schwartz is the executive director of the San Diego Gun Owners PAC.
We wish that he would go after criminals rather than those that are trying to abide by and follow the law.
Schwartz says his group is against anyone using guns in any illegal way, especially in violent crimes. He says ghost gun sales are already illegal, and this law targets a minority of gun enthusiasts.
Folks that are home manufacturing firearms shouldn't be targeted by the government, for doing something that is not hurting anybody, is not intended to break a law or anything like that. The rights of the minority are still rights.
We need to make sure that the community, the law-abiding community, is directed towards legal points of sale and the processes of registration and the ability to track these so that they are not continuing to proliferate and cause harm into our communities.
Schwartz says if the bill passes, it will be tied up in litigation, just like a similar law passed in San Diego.
I can guarantee there will be lawsuits.
The bill still has to be approved by the state Senate and signed by the governor to become law. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
New hospitalizations due to Omicron are starting to decrease in San Diego County, indicating that we may have the peak of new infections. We may have seen the peak of new infections, but still the death toll from the virus is still rising. And today the county reported 3,209 new positive cases and 22 deaths. The above average hospitalizations and deaths can be attributed to the spike we had been seeing since December. Case counts can also be higher because of the accessibility of home tests, which are not reported to the county. Since the beginning of the year, 247 San Diegans have died because of COVID-related illness. Crews in the Midway District cleaned up the homeless encampment near the sports arena for the second time this week. They cleared out trash from an alley way behind several businesses and disinfected the area. John Brady with the homeless advocacy group Lived Experience says cleanup efforts like this should have been done a while ago.
This environment, I mean, what's happening here today, really we should have been down here providing this kind of regular service in order to ensure that the environment is safe and clean and does not become a cesspool of transmissible diseases and other issues.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria says in the first day, crews disposed of 3 tons of trash and debris. He says they will be back weekly to continue cleanup efforts as well as outreach efforts. The city is working on finding more motels and apartments to use as temporary shelters. Community schools are a $3 billion initiative coming to some California schools aimed at meeting students and families' needs. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne tells us 4 schools in Oceanside have already integrated the program.
4 Oceanside school campuses have become community schools: Mission, Laurel, Libby Elementary Schools, and Jefferson Middle School.
So community schools is an initiative that is being embraced across our country and in our state. And the idea behind it is that our schools are really the heart of our communities, and that by making sure that we invest in our communities through our schools and remove barriers, especially in areas that are areas where people experience poverty or are under-resourced, that we put those resources in and we remove those barriers.
Mercedes Levy with the Oceanside Unified School District says grants for community schools will be available to all school districts this month. But Oceanside didn't want to wait and set aside funds to roll out the program at the beginning of this year. This included hiring a community school coordinator for each of the 4 community schools.
So they are from the community, they are leaders, they're managers, and what their role really is to, again, reach out to parents and build the capacity for the parents to be able to access those resources and also build more connections between our community resources and our schools.
Levy says coordinators will work with parents and community partners to expand services to students. Some of the expanded services will be offered at a new wellness center that will be coming to Jefferson Middle School.
This wellness center will be around healthy eating, mindfulness, being able to have better exercise. It'll be an opportunity to learn about some of the challenges people experience who are dependent on substances and to help students to avoid becoming dependent on substances. So that's going to be one. You'll see more health clinics. We're going to have a dental screening clinic, again, bringing that right into the school.
Natalie Sanchez is a parent at Libby Elementary and president of the parent-teacher organization. She has already met with Libby's community school coordinator and plans on getting more parents and community members involved in the conversations.
I personally have a lot of friends that don't have students that go there anymore, but I know would love to participate. So hopefully, we get enough parents and community members to join. Could make a difference.
Sanchez hopes bringing more sports to the schools will be a part of the community school plan.
Sports obviously is a big change for students. We don't live in a very nice neighborhood, So we try to distract these kids from everything else. And I think that having all these programs on campus will help the students and the families.
Sanchez is excited to see the community schools grow and thinks it's a good way for the district to build trust with Oceanside parents. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Community college students across the state have just been given a lifeline to stay in school. The California Community College Board of Governors has approved an updated no-pass grading policy to discourage students from dropping out. Here's KPBS education reporter MG Perez.
Yeah, we do need to talk about that.
Edward Borek is at work and often in school, online from his dining room table, problem solving.
You can't unplug a monitor or plug in my laptop. It's all enclosed.
Edward works as a program assistant at Miramar College, where he is also president of the Associated Student Government, and he's taking 17 units of credit this semester. He's working on a business administration degree.
A lot of people lost their jobs. I lost my job due to the pandemic, and they can't afford it. College is expensive. Incredibly expensive.
California community college students struggling to pay tuition also can't afford to have their grades drop because they risk losing financial aid and lowering their GPA and chances at transferring to a four-year university. Many have dropped out. In response, the State Community College Board of Governors will now allow students until their last day of class in a semester to decide whether they want a letter grade or a pass-no-pass rating to relieve pressure.
Just because you want to get that 90 as opposed to an 89. If you're taking a pass, no pass, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. You wouldn't have to struggle so much to succeed.
Students were struggling with remote instruction. They were struggling with family members being ill due to COVID.
Adrian Gonzalez is vice president of student affairs at Miramar College.
If in a normal situation, they would have gotten an A, but because of everything they're dealing with, they're struggling, maybe getting a C. This allowed them to say, hey, I'll take it as a pass, no pass, and not have to worry about the pressures of the A, B, or C on my transcript.
A change in community college policy does not mean a change for schools like San Diego State or any other four-year universities that require traditional grading. So there is very much a calculated risk for students.
It's going to take us a little while to really determine what the long-term impact of this is and how we as higher ed will need to make adjustments to support the students who are now coming out of the high schools.
We all bring our laptops and work because we're going back and forth.
Edward Borek will keep problem solving until he completes an MBA or gets into law school.
I think that you have to be optimistic and shoot for the stars.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
California is putting its decision to revise the solar power market on hold indefinitely. The president of CPUC says her agency needs more time to consider changes that could upend the solar marketplace. Critics say the current system subsidizes rich Californians who install solar panels. Solar advocates say it will stop adoption of solar on rooftops, hurting the state's chances to meet its greenhouse gas reduction goals.
Thanks for tuning in to KPBS News. I'm Marvin Gomez. Let's talk about the weather here in San Diego County. Offshore winds will continue for the next couple of days, and that's going to allow for conditions to gradually be warming up into the weekend. And of course, the dry weather will also stay with us for the next couple of days. Due to those winds that we have in place, parts of San Diego County have a wind advisory. You can see those areas mainly over the mountains and some of the inland valleys. That's where the wind's going to be problem. Some of those gusts could be peaking over 45 miles per hour for places like Campo, heading towards Alpine, over 45 mile per hour wind gust as well. And you can see places like Ramona and Julian, some of those areas could see gusts over 40 miles per hour. And those winds are going to continue into Friday. Here's a quick look at tonight's forecast, though. Not a lot of action across our area, mainly clear skies. It is going to be a very cool night. 33 degrees for Oceanside. Looking at Escondido, we're going to come down to 38 28 degrees. Mount Laguna, 32 degrees for your low tonight. Here's a quick look at our Friday. Most of California starting to get a little bit more on the mild side, but again on the southern end, not a lot of action, very uneventful conditions. It is going to be a little bit chilly over towards the Four Corners. Here's a look at your forecast for this Friday afternoon in San Diego County. Looking at those numbers in Borrego Springs, the low 60s for you, upper 30s in Mount Laguna, and closer towards the coast in the downtown area, 70 degrees for San Diego. Here's a quick look at your forecast for the coast. In the upcoming days, temperatures warming up into the low 70s as we head into our Monday. Mostly sunny conditions, pleasant weather across our area. Inland areas are also going to have abundant sunshine with temperatures here getting possibly closer to the upper 70s for our Sunday. And looking at the mountains, well, of course, it's going to be sunny here as well, but obviously in the higher terrain, we're going to have some lower numbers, but it doesn't look that bad for Sunday, closer to 50 degrees, and also Monday coming up to the upper 40s. Last but not least, in the deserts, we're going to have temperatures in the 60s, low 60s for Friday, and gradually getting back into the mid 70s for late this weekend into early next week. For KPBS News, I'm Marvin Gomez.
We're still seeing historically high prices for both new and used cars this year, and experts predict those prices could stick around for much of 2022. Jen Sullivan reports on what's driving up the cost and when buyers could catch a break.
A shortage of parts, limited production, and surging demand for both new and used cars. It's all driving consumers to pay record sky-high prices for those few cars that dealerships have available.
Driving that is some of the shift toward trucks and SUVs and higher contented vehicles. But at the same time, because of this lack of inventory, dealers are not required to discount at all.
According to J.D. Power, the average transaction price for a new car was over $45,000 last December. That's up 29% from 2019. And according to Edmunds, prices for used cars ended the year with an average price of nearly $30,000. That's up 29% from a year earlier.
If you were trying to find a reasonably priced used car, because the car you have is just conked out, it's going to be much difficult.
So when can buyers catch a break? Experts say availability could start to increase as production starts to come back online and the supply of car parts improves.
It's not just microchips that we're seeing shortages of. We're seeing resin used in paint, we're seeing tire shortages, and even wiring harnesses, and on and on.
J.D. Power forecasts the average wholesale price of used cars could fall about 9% from the fourth quarter of 2021 to the fourth quarter of this year. But that won't get prices to where they were before the pandemic.
In 2023, we'll expect prices to start to come down, but I don't expect to see a return to the old days.
For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the leader of ISIS killed in a U.S. raid. What his death means for the ongoing fight against the terrorist group. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Over the last couple of nights, we've been reporting on Museum Month, which is an opportunity to get 50% off admission at more than 45 museums throughout San Diego County. Tonight, KPBS reporter John Carroll features a museum designed just for the little ones.
This is a hot commodity in San Diego County right now. It's the Museum Month Pass.
This is our 33rd year of Museum Month. This is the biggest of its kind in the country, where all the museums get together and offer half-price admission.
Bob Lehman is the executive director of the Museum Council. He says Museum Month passes are available at all Macy's stores and at more than 75 libraries across the county. Speaking of the county, Lehman says there are more museums here than most people know.
They're all over San Diego. We go all the way up to Oceanside, all the way down to Chula Vista National City, and all the way out to Verona.
And all the way down to downtown, where at 200 West Island Avenue you find the new Children's Museum.
It's a 50,000 square foot space where different kinds of contemporary art meet children 12 and under, and the takeaway for them is multidimensional.
We are a new model of children's museum.
Museum Deputy Director Carrie Fox.
We commission contemporary artists to create full-scale, room-sized art installations that children can touch and play in and on and immerse themselves in. So we're a little different.
Even for a grown-up kid, what's inside this place is fascinating. Take this big colorful thing. It's called a whammock. Children climb in and up and across to reach the middle. And this, the latest addition, the Teatro Piñata, an interactive theater. Everything here, all this art, is aimed at reaching children on many levels.
Through art, children think a different way. They are more creative. We believe it gives them optimism, collaboration, critical thinking skills, resilience. All of these things in the various art installations as well as when they try their hand at creating art.
Like just about every museum, the new Children's Museum has had to adapt to COVID. They closed for 14 months, but they still worked hard to continue their mission. Carrie Fox says they began sending out learning kits.
We filled out little packages with all the materials that they would need and a little plan on how to do it. We made about 15,000 of those.
Fox says the museum is recovering from the darkest days of the pandemic. They're now back to being open 5 days a week, and they've hired back almost all of the staff that was laid off. An improving picture at a really unique place, one of nearly 50 amazing museums and cultural institutions across this county. Maybe the city needs to share its slogan, and we need to start calling this America's Finest County. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Some more art now, but it's not just for kids. Miniland USA at Legoland California Resort will be getting its own taste of Super Bowl 56. A 1:50 scale Lego structure in the image of SoFi Stadium will be constructed and revealed a month after the Super Bowl. A team of 25 model master builders will build the structure, which will be 30 feet long, 50 feet wide, and over 4 feet tall. It will take 6,000 hours and 500,000 bricks to make. It's actually looking to beat the Guinness World Record for largest brick sculpture ever created of a stadium. I look forward to seeing that. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.